and I was constantly thinking of how do I make a little bit of extra money. I saw this opportunity that clicked. I think I could do that. I could make calls and talk to people and ask good questions. And I think I'm smart enough to follow a script and a proven process. Like, yeah, let's do that.
Daniel, thank you for joining me on our Thought Leader Spotlight series. I'm your host, Matt Camp over here, head of partnerships at DealMachine. And on these, we really like to shine an industry spotlight on experts like yourself, hear your inspiring stories and how you see the real estate world evolving. So today, really excited to welcome on our friend Daniel Burke-Aguero. You are the founder of Trailhead Investment Group. You're a nationwide real estate investing firm based out of Columbia, Missouri, my alma mater at Mizzou right there. Love it. I know you were previously an executive business coach, a consultant. You worked with over 100 businesses to help them scale. So I'm going to dig into those lessons learned here too. I know you went from selling educational textbooks door to door to real estate, and you've got priorities in life all the way from family to playing music, ultra marathons, all the above. So Daniel, really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah. Can you kind of tell me more? I mean, I loved the you sharing your background of door knocking over 25,000 doors and how you went from that all the way through paying through college or paying for yourself through college with that, evolved into real estate. I love to hear more about that journey and like kind of the lessons you learned from that experience.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it's sometimes when I think back on how I got started in sales, it just doesn't make sense, like what we did. But it is what it is. It's fun. So when I was 19 years old as a freshman at Mizzou, right? So go Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
I met a buddy of mine, right, who told me about this summer thing he did where he sold books, and I didn't really understand it, but I knew he made a lot of money and he got to travel, and those things sounded cool to a freshman in college. So I ended up working with the oldest direct sales internship in the country. It's a company called Southwestern. It's based out in Nashville. And as a 19-year-old kid, I sold educational books, essentially modern day encyclopedias, door to door, 80 hours a week, straight commission the whole summer. And I ended up doing well enough that I actually came back for a second summer and ultimately ended up doing that for 6 summers. So I paid my way through school doing that. I knocked on over 25,000 doors before I was 24. I recruited, trained, led teams, met my wife through it. So it's kind of crazy, but yeah, that's what we did. We sold everything from like early learning, learn to read for little kids stuff, all the way up through like college prep and, ACT, SAT type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, out of that, ended up doing a couple different career paths over the years. Spent some time in mortgage at Veterans United, actually here in Columbia as well. Spent some time in business development. And then for the last 6 years prior to here, I came back to the Southwestern family of companies, and I worked with one of their sister companies, which is consulting and essentially one-on-one executive coaching. So I had the privilege of working with about 100 different businesses, pulling them apart, putting them back together. Super fun, learned a ton, and that's also kind of how I ended up here. Was one of my clients, I was speaking at an event, introduces me to a friend of his who's doing this nationwide wholesale thing that I'd never heard of. And one thing led to another, and now I'm here.
So, here we are. There we go. Cool. I love it. What was that kind of like aha moment for the real estate side? Like what made you say, hey, yeah, I'm going all in on this?
Yeah, man, it was a combo of a couple things. I try and be as transparent as I can whenever I talk to folks about this, because I feel like sometimes in the real estate investing world, there's all this, I think, smoke and mirrors around what people are doing or what their numbers are, without, the recognizing the reality of stuff sometimes. So for us, I had spent 6 years building this business, and I was impacting so many people's lives, and I had a really cool thing going. But I was depressed, and the income was going down, and I couldn't figure out why. For some reason that year, stuff just wasn't clicking. I was no longer on fire with it. I, yeah, and I was constantly thinking of how do I make a little bit of extra money, right?
Hmm.
So candidly, that's kind of where it started. Was I saw this opportunity that clicked. I said, I think I could do that. I could make calls and talk to people and ask good questions, and I think I'm smart enough to follow a script and a proven process. Like, yeah, let's do that. And yeah, I didn't think I was going to tell this story, but here we are. Uh, I was speaking at an event, learned about Nationwide, go to another event. It's a land specific event.
Hmm.
And at the end of it, I remember I go up to the guys and I'm like, you're telling me if I make phone calls to land in Texas and I find a thing, you're going to pay me money for it? And he's like, yeah, that's how it works. I'm like,
Hmm.
I can do that. And so I did that, and I ended up locking up this 240-acre tract at 0% interest, and like structured a really cool deal that ended up at the time. Uh, they said they would give me I think it was $120,000 assignment, and so my brain is just exploding.
Yeah.
And if I still have not been paid on that, just to be clear, right? I don't know
Hmm.
if I ever will, but it was that moment where the the gates, the my eyes were opened, right?
Hmm.
Where I said, "Hey, regardless of what happens, I have now stepped into an opportunity that I did not know existed at a scale that I did not know existed." And specifically, I saw this confluence of everything I've done over the last 15 years, I felt like was putting me in a spot where I could excel at something that's nationwide that required a depth of knowledge between mortgage and real estate and insurance and lending and all these
Hmm.
different pieces, and then also building a team, and then also digital marketing and leadership. I was like, I feel like there's this really cool opportunity. Um, and yeah, that's kind of what started. So
Yeah.
a deal that never materialized caused me to then make some big decisions and make some big investments and jump in with some other groups, and things didn't go to plan, but they never do. But we're still
Hmm.
here, and it's working. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man, it's pretty crazy how things work out like that, man. And like you
yeah,
said, it wasn't Plan A in terms of how you got to where you are today, but it does seem like the confluence of all these different past experiences you've had that can lead you to be prepared for success for this type of role too.
yeah.
Um,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah. Do you think? I mean, I know we started with the door to door sales stuff, and we
Mhm.
definitely have people interested in that world. Do you have any tips or advice there on applying that to real estate specifically? Like if you're talking to sellers and taking the kind of the door
Absolutely.
to door strategy to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's interesting. I was training my team last week on
Hmm.
tonality, on disc assessments, tonality, on language and word choice and stuff like that of how to best build relationships with people. And what we were talking about was over the phone. 99%, not 90, I don't know the exact number. What it's like 90% of communication is nonverbal, right? And so if you only have 10% to work with over the phone, like we do, you got to be a master at it. You got to be really good at it. Um, and so what I think is interesting is the guys coming out of door to door, or we're still in it, might be considering coming over here. There's so many different ways to do real estate, and some of the guys that I know that have come out of door to door don't do the nationwide model like I do. What they do is they lean into the fact that they're not afraid of going and knocking on the pre foreclosures and the tax delinquents and talking to people face to face and closing deals belly to belly, and like lean into that skill set. That's
Hmm.
something that you've developed over thousands of doors, and the ability to not only read the room and build rapport, but like earn that trust. And I don't know, it's something that you don't really realize you've developed until you've spent, you know, years
Hmm.
knocking on doors and doing the thing. And so I think for me that was it was something I was able to translate and move over to every sales career I've ever done since then has been um, bolstered by the fact that as a young kid I got the opportunity to really develop my sales acumen
Hmm.
um, significantly faster, failing forward fast, just faster than my peers, right? It's like I've made more mistakes than you have. That's the
Right.
way I look at it. And so I think adopting that same mentality too with real estate is helpful, of just saying, there's such an abundance of opportunity in real estate investing and in whatever vehicle you choose to look at. And so to not hold too tightly to that one deal, but rather to remember, just like when you're knocking on doors, like no one sale is going to make or break your summer or your year or your week. It's like, just do your best in the moment, treat people with respect and dignity. If it doesn't work, just move on. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very healthy mentality to have. I mean, it's something that I know a lot of people, watching this might be trying to get that first deal or first couple deals and maybe holding on to a deal like that and are really trying to hone their sales skills. So I love if you if you have a handful of things of, hey, you're talking to a newbie, it's their first time either doing cold call, door to door, any, all the above. Do you have any advice for them on how to approach sales, how to approach talking to sellers? Like, I'd love to hear a little bit of the Daniel crash course there, if that's okay.
Yeah. Well, man, if anything, something I don't want to say prided myself on, but something that I think I'm really good at is not reinventing the wheel, and just I'm really good at following the proven path before me. So my
Sure.
my ninja sales skills, or my sales training, if you will, is actually just to say, hey, there's a ton of resources and people out there. I know DealMachine, like you guys have a ton of like baked into like the collar. That's something we talked about, like the
Mhm.
coaching within it, the scripting, like there's so much that already exists. So I think one bit of advice is to just try and implement what's already out there. So rather than trying to make it up, follow a process, a proven path, and just try and try and execute on some kind of framework.
Mhm.
And then the bonus tip is just talk less, listen more. If you can have the seller talk more than you, that's probably a good sign. And if you can get the seller to say the things that you are going to ask, that's even better, right? People
Mhm.
believe more of what they say versus what you tell them. So learn to ask really good questions to uncover the pain, the situation, see if you can provide a solution. But again, rather than telling them your solution, see if you can learn to ask better questions to help guide people to a solution.
Love it. What would you guys say is kind of your ideal deal at this point? Like, what's kind of the perfect deal structure for you guys? And yeah, I'd just love to hear more of what's really your sweet spot currently now.
Yeah, so when I first started in the world, I was starting primarily through wholesale assignment of contract nationwide. And it was great, it was working fine. As we started scaling the team, we just started leaning into novations more.
Hmm.
I really believe there's a time and a place for every exit strategy, but a lot of the sellers that we talk to, they don't have to close by the end of the month. They want to close fast, but they don't have to. Um, yeah, their house probably needs some work, but it's not a typical teardown where we have to be below 70, 75% after repairs, after assignment, all that. And so we started really exploring novations more, because I think there's so many situations where we can offer the seller more, still provide the same type of solution they were looking for. So
Hmm.
for us right now, our best deals that we've had year to date and the deals that we continue to look for are situations that we can solve by providing a level of service. So sometimes that service is the peace of mind. Sometimes it's like a financial. We worked with quite a few sellers this year where they were open to listing, but their biggest holdup was they just didn't have the cash position. They said, "Hey, if something comes up on like the septic or the something, like I literally couldn't fix it if I like." So that's why I reached out about this cash offer in the first place, because like I can't list it. And so then when we step in, we say, well, what if we partner together, essentially? What if we list it? And if anything comes up, like the septic, which we know probably will, we'll cover it, right? And if we can do that and make some money in the process and offer you more, are you willing to be flexible on your timeline? So for us, it's people who are in situations who need a solution that we can provide with our service and ultimately are flexible on their timeline. to allow us the time we need to ultimately market it and find an end buyer.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great pitch there too. If you I know you mentioned like, hey, ask better and better questions, right? Do you have any kind of go to initial questions on building trust with sellers for kind of assessing their situation, seeing what type of deal structure they might be open to? Like, I'd love to hear any examples you've got there on how to have that great initial conversation with the seller.
Yeah, one of the bits of coaching I got early in my career around the idea of building deeper relationships and asking better questions, right? It was the idea that when we ask a question for an answer, right, it's like a one-to-one, right? But what we're really looking for is the depth of response. So what we're really trying to think through is saying, hey, for example, what's got you thinking about selling? Very broad
Mm-hmm.
question, right? And the seller's probably going to say something like, here's my situation, here's what's going on, right? Most people will go, sorry to hear that, and then they move on to the next question. Or they go, dang, well, that's why I'm here, is to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I learned was this idea of asking what we would call second and third and fourth level questions. So essentially, can you go deeper? Can you ask even just something as simple as they say, well, I'm falling behind on my taxes, right? Or the bills are piling up, or whatever the situation is. I'm tired of being a landlord, whatever. Um, Instead of just acknowledging it, moving on, just ask a simple, tell me more. What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example? Can you help me understand? Gosh, really? Like, even if that's all you say is like, tell me more. They're going to tell you more, and they're going to start going a little deeper. And then what we're ultimately trying to find out is like the consequence questions, right? Of saying like, well, if I heard you right, you said this is kind of your situation, and it sounds like it's getting bigger. What happens if you don't fix it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what we're trying to get to is the place of understanding that the problem is big enough that the solution that we provide is worth it. Because if the problem isn't big enough and our solution has to be what it has to be, then we're just not the right fit. And we'll tell people to move on. We'll say, hey, you know what? Listen, at the end of the day, like you should probably just list. It sounds like there's not a ton of value that we can add.
Mm-hmm.
We just try and be as transparent as possible with folks on that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, second and third level questions, consequence questions. What happens if you don't have this solved? Tell me more. Again, second, third layer on that as well. I think just something as simple as that can really help expand the depth of conversation beyond just a question and an answer, a question and an answer.
Yeah, that's so good. Nice. I know we're coming up on time here in a minute. I did want to ask around building a team because I know you're in the middle of that right now, and
Yeah.
you're focused on finding those individual high performers and things. Can you tell me the kind of the lessons that you've learned recently on building a team, and especially for people watching this that are kind of at that phase of scaling and things like do you have any advice for them through that journey initially?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in part, one of the reasons that gave me confidence to jump into this business and the way that we're doing it, the scale we're trying to move, the speed with which we're doing it, came from the fact that for the last 6 years, all I did was pull businesses apart and put them back together. And so it was different because now it's me and it's mine, but at least conceptually, I felt like I could wrap my brain around what that could look like.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've seen time and time again in every successful business I got to work with and that I'm focused on now is that good people know good people. And the inverse effect is that a team member who's not culturally aligned, who's not the right fit, who's not pulling their weight, like it may seem like a little thing to skip over their non-performance or whatever the case is, but man, that ripple effect of allowing somebody who's not performing to stay is significantly more detrimental to the longevity of a team than keeping somebody around who does 60% of what they're supposed to. So what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for good people who are willing to take ownership of their role, who are almost wired like an entrepreneur, but they want to work within an existing framework and process. I'm looking for an intrapreneur, right? Somebody who almost wants to build a business within a business, use kind of that framework. Somebody wants to take ownership of their role, right? So to me, what that means is I'm willing to pay people more if they're willing to take ownership of their role and produce results. So we pay higher commission than other groups do on purpose. It means I make less per deal, but my hope is, and it's been proven so far, and I've proved it with other organizations, is that we're going to continue attracting the right talent, not because of the money, but because of the opportunity. And we're going to continue to screen for people who believe what we believe about being coachable, committed, ready to change, doing the right thing for the right reasons, who are wired around integrity and honesty, and treating people right. So
Yeah.
yeah, pay people well. Maybe that's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, while they align with all those other things, right? Like I love that long-term bet on people and investing in them. We've got a very similar mentality here at DealMachine too. So that definitely rings true. But, yeah, Daniel, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on, opening up and being transparent with our audience and really laying out some. I mean, I got a ton of nuggets out of this too myself. So, how can people connect with you, get involved with you? Like, I'd love for our audience to be able to connect with you if you're open to that too.
Yeah, I would say probably Instagram, Facebook. Those are probably the two easiest. Daniel Burke-Aguero. That's my name. I'm the only one in the United States, in the world. So I'm pretty easy to find in that sense. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, we'll make sure to link to that, include all that in the description and everything. But Daniel, really enjoyed the conversation, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah. And to everyone watching, this is Matt Camp over here with DealMachine, and happy deal finding.